signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Gotham Chronicles Beyond the Bat Signal. I'm your host, Domenic Iannicca. Join me as we dive into the depths of Batman's lore, dissecting the Rogues Gallery, and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight. Now, before I begin this show, I just want to first and foremost thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, where we're going to be discussing, I guess, arguably, there's no argument about this. This is the most iconic, I would say, villain that definitely in Batman's Rogues Gallery, and I would say probably the best villain in all of comic books, the Joker. And it's not just specifically just the Joker, but more so the origin of the Joker. But before we get into that, if you can, please rate and review the show on any platform. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, that'd be awesome. And leave a 5-star rating. And if you can, a comment. Then there's also, if you have any questions, comments, or you want to share a thought, feel free to shoot me an email it's beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. And feel free to follow me along at X/Twitter @onbatsignal, where, I'll give you some heads up as to when this show's coming out, what it's going to be about, and when it's going to be released. As well, every now and then I like to look at Batman artwork, whatnot. But yeah, anyway, give a follow. Now, at this point, I'd like to discuss probably, I guess, at the beginning of, or the first episode of the show was talking about the creator of the Batman, which, many people believed it was Bob Kane, but it wasn't, right? After a lot of, I would say, investigating, most in part of Mark Tyler Nobleman, who did all the legwork. And what he did was, I would say, incredible. And incredible is just an understatement. But to kind of get the truth out there for fans and even for, the Finger family, to say that Bill Finger was one of the creators of Batman. And it's a shame that, unfortunately, he's only getting recognition after his passing. But the amazing thing is that, he's got a granddaughter who has been a huge advocate. Now, on this episode, we're going to look at, who created the Joker? Was it Bob Kane? Bob Kane argues it was him, and we're going to talk about, I guess we'll talk about first what he mentions in his interview with Stan Lee, and then how he kind of brings up his book. So if it's in the book, it's got to be true. But that's not the case. So with that being said, let's get into today's episode, where we look at the true creator of the Joker.
You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
And I thought my jokes were bad.
Okay, so first and foremost, a lot of this information. I did some research, and I think the primary research or the primary sources I got it from was, and very reliable resources, was Mark Tyler Nobleman, of course, and the GOAT, Bill Jet Ramey, Batman on Film, and it was his site that provided an interview that was done between Michael Uslan and Jerry Robinson. Not only that, but then I'm also grabbing from an interview that I saw on YouTube, where if you Google Stan Lee Bob Kane interview, it is kind of old school, and they kind of go back and forth. Like, you'll see Bob Kane do a nice little drawing of Batman, and then the name Jerry Robinson is brought up. So that's what we're going to get into right now. So on this interview, Bob Kane brings up his book. So I think he's promoting Batman 1989. And there was a question about the Joker, and right away he tries to go into defense mode, where he points to Conrad Veidt, and he was saying, yes, this is the origin of where the Joker came, and it was actually Bill Finger who was a huge participant in it. So he gave Bill Finger some credit with the Joker. But then he says he hired a ghost artist to draw the Joker. And that man's name was Jerry Robinson. And he said now Jerry Robinson, to his dying day, will refute this claim and say he created the Joker. But based on what Bob Kane said, he was saying, like, I had this image of Conrad Veidt from The Man Who Laughs first. And then Jerry Robinson secondly came with a Joker playing card. And he was saying, well, wouldn't the Joker then look like the Joker playing card and not like Conrad Veidt? Right? So he was saying, no, like, I created the Joker, not Jerry Robinson. And Stan Lee pushes back just a little, saying, Jerry Robinson is a dear friend of mine. And Bob Kane goes, well, no friend of Jerry is a friend of mine. Okay. Then Stan goes, whoever created the Joker. And Bob pushes back and says, no, me and Bill created the Joker. So he refutes it again. It's kind of nice, again, that once again he's mentioning Bill's name finally. But it was just, you could see in the look of Stan Lee's face. I highly recommend that you guys go watch this interview. It's so cringe. It's a look of, yeah, I don't believe you. I really don't. So Bob is like, no, there's conclusive proof right in my book. So obviously he's saying, no, it's my word against everyone else's. He's saying, Bill Finger and I created the Joker, and that playing card came after the fact. Stan Lee was not aware that there was even a playing card. Okay. So then Kane goes on to say, well, if Robinson brought this playing card first to me, then this is what it would have looked, the Joker would look like, with a jester hat, but it wasn't. However, the way that Jerry Robinson describes it was very much in partnership with Bill Finger, and the story just kind of lines up. But make no mistake, Bob Kane continues to recognize himself that he was also creator of the Joker. Meanwhile, it was more like Bill Finger still brought this picture to Bob Kane, and Bob Kane is taking the credit. Okay. Now, from the information that I've gathered, this was through interviews with Jerry Robinson, this was through Mark Tyler Nobleman and Batman on Film, was that Jerry Robinson was actually in Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken. And, he was wearing an art jacket, and it was actually Bob Kane who saw him, came across. And I think they were at the Poconos or something like that back in the summer of 1939. So Jerry Robinson was fresh out of high school, just graduated, and he was supposed to go to the University of Syracuse. And Bob Kane's like, man, it's a shame you're going to Syracuse, or you could join my Batman team. And that's what Jerry Robinson recalled Bob Kane saying. So what did Jerry Robinson do? I mean, you have Bob Kane come up to you, and at this point, he was the creator of the Batman. And it's like, well, here's my shot. So he switched universities. He moved to New York, the Big Apple, and went to Columbia University instead, where Jerry Robinson would study journalism, literature, and creative writing. And this is quoted from Jerry Robinson himself. He says, "We lived, ate, drank, and slept Batman ideas, characters, and stories," he said. So it seemed like these three, Bill Finger, Bob Kane, Jerry Robinson, all started off as great buddies. Now, Bob Kane had an apartment in the Bronx where Bill Finger and Jerry Robinson would also bounce around content, ideas through lunch and dinner. And obviously, they're trying to produce a brand new superhero. And why not, right? They're collaborating. It's a great way to hang out. And it seems like they were all getting along. And then with Jerry Robinson, he says that he's always found villains much more interesting. And I find that, like, on a side note, majority of us do. I mean, the first thing that we try to think of is who's the next villain going to be for Batman. We always look at, I mean, especially through the Tim Burton and Schumacher films, it's who are the villains going to be? And really where it should be primarily focused on Batman. But it is, right? Like, Batman's got such a deep rogues gallery, right? Like, you put that rogues gallery against anyone else, I say they smack them. Hands down. Anyway, now Jerry Robinson and Bill Finger kind of tell different stories as to how the Joker was made. Jerry said that he wanted to make an everlasting character, someone who could test Batman. So, and I mean, clearly, like, if this is going to be an issue, Batman issue number 1, right? Talk about standing the test of time with the Joker, which, interesting enough, in the first issue, Joker was actually supposed to die in that issue. And editors were the one who were like, no. We're going to have to keep this character around. Like, we got lightning in a bottle and we're going to run with it. And sure enough, like, there you go. Like, Joker, the only villain who is able to produce $1 billion film on his own with no Batman. Anyway, it was Jerry who loved playing cards with his family. Now, he had a deck of cards put on his desk when he noticed the Joker card. And he was like, that's it. So Robinson immediately calls Bill Finger, told him the idea. Jerry said Bill Finger was just not too sure about having the Joker. So then Jerry Robinson, obviously, he made some sketches of the Joker using the playing card, showed Bill Finger. And then Bill Finger was like, okay, now let's try to revise this. No different. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Bob Kane goes to Bill Finger and it's like, here's my idea of the Batman. But then obviously you have Bill Finger who completely revamps what the Batman's going to look like, from domino mask and red tights to obviously the Batman that we have now with a bat cowl, and it's a lot darker. But here it seems like Robinson and Bill Finger were pretty much on the same page. So, Bill Finger's like, well, I got an image that looks kind of like this Joker playing card. Why not something like the movie from The Man Who Laughs, right? And it was the main character. So obviously most agree that the Joker was inspired by the main character with that smile. And I mean, if you Google The Man Who Laughs, made in the 1930s, right? Like, they'll say like looks identical. But the concept, the initial idea came from Jerry Robinson, right? And Jerry Robinson in 2009 interview said, the concept was all mine. And it was Bill who finished the script and what should happen. And then Bob and I did the visuals. So Bob was as well. He was part of this creative process. So one thing that's interesting is Jerry Robinson never excluded Bob from this conversation. He included Bob Kane as one of these creators, right? Like he was part of it. Whereas Bob Kane is just completely dismissing Jerry Robinson altogether and saying, no, you have no part of this. But Bob Kane will say, Bill created the Joker and Jerry only contributed to the Joker playing card. That's it. Now, there was an interview done in, I believe, 1966 with Bill Finger where, and I'm not quoting anything, I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, where he said that it was either Jerry or Bob who conceptualized the character. But he also adds that Kane would draw what the Joker would become. So his first sketch was striking menace of the Joker's eyes and smile. Now that said, okay, you think about the step process. You have Jerry Robinson, loves to play cards. I think it was Bridges that he was playing with his family. I'm not sure, but he came across the Joker card. Brings it to Bill Finger. Bill Finger immediately is like, well, here's some sketches. Okay. And it kind of looks like this guy from The Man Who Laughs. Bill Finger then brings it to Bob Kane. So Bob Kane is like the third man in this process, right? What Jerry's not refuting, nor is Bill Finger, is that Bob Kane did have a hand on this. However, Bob Kane is definitely dismissing Jerry Robinson's contributions, which I think is wrong. Right? I mean, and then long term, like here's someone who has advocated and said, listen, I helped create the Joker. I was the one who brought the concept to life, right? And he should get credit for it, rightfully so. Now, Michael Uslan, for those of you who don't know, but should know, this was a guy who brought Batman back to life and brought Batman 1989 to the big screen. And that dark, menacing Batman that we know, starring Michael Keaton. Oh my God. He did an interview with Jerry Robinson. And point blank, he asked, who created the Joker? Jerry Robinson's response, for better or for worse, I did create the Joker. Now, he even said in that interview that both they, meaning Bob Kane, Bill Finger, went bananas and made the Joker in the first story for Batman issue number 1 that was released in 1940. Okay, so not only that, when it comes to the mythos of the Joker, yeah, like Robinson said, we need someone that is the yin to the yang of Batman. Who's the polar opposite? If you have Batman who's dark, who's someone that's going to be punchy, funny, light, but also has a dark side. And that's Joker. Then you have Kane and Finger, who added to the mythos, right? So they did have a key part, right? Joker was supposed to be a contradiction to Batman, right? He was supposed to have a sense of humor, and that's why his name was the Joker, right? Like, you have the Joker playing card, and then here comes the personality behind it. So that's how this all led to that Joker inspiration. And then Robinson also started outlining of what the story would be for this Joker to outwit Batman, right? So Robinson also had a key role into who the Joker is going to be, and it is oftentimes like trying to outwit him, right? Through his personality. Now, Uslan asked Robinson about Bob Kane's claim that he created the Joker based on Conrad Veitz's appearance on The Man Who Laughs. Robinson's response to that was that he indeed did show him an image of Conrad Veidt, but that was after the fact. Okay, so in other words, Robinson already created the Joker and Kane simply recognized the sketch and how it resembled The Man Who Laughs, and which was pointed out by Finger, and then it was Bob Kane who kind of went crazy and did the finishing touches. That's the story that I gather from each of these sources. Now, Bob Kane had sole ownership of Batman, and all of his friends, foes, so the Rogues Gallery, people like Catwoman, Robin, Bill Finger was later acknowledged. That said, it was never fully acknowledged for Jerry Robinson. And yes, he was acknowledged in the sense that he did some writing, he did some illustrating. But that said, that's okay. Jerry Robinson said, you know what? I was a renowned artist, and he was very well known for all of his paintings and all the work he did. And he was a wonderful illustrator, even I think he was a cartoonist. And he did muster up a wonderful career, even after the Joker. Now, most experts, they'll say that it was Jerry Robinson and Bill Finger who made the Joker. And that's the way it seems, right? And especially the way Bob Kane's image is at this point. It's really who really did? You can't argue that Bob Kane came up with the Joker. He really didn't, just based on how the stories line up. Jerry Robinson passed away in the year 2011. So may he rest in peace. And there's something to be said about the contribution of a villain, a comic book villain, probably the best one out of any superhero genre. Any. Right? The Joker. You put him up against anybody, arguably, he's probably the most recognizable villain. Yeah? The one with so much depth, so much personality, so much that we're obviously lured to. And I want to do a deep dive into who the Joker is psychologically. What is our preference, right? For me, in terms of preference when it comes to who the Joker is, I never like a true origin story. I like a more multiple choice. It's left up for guessing. I think that's what makes the Joker, it's more mystery. He's more mysterious that way. And I appreciate it. I know that, with Jeff Johns' Three Jokers book, that was a masterpiece in itself. But Batman saying that he knows who the Joker is, that's the one thing where I'm like, I kind of wish that he would just take that out. Because no one knows who the Joker is. So before I get into, I guess the next segment, I have to allude that Jerry Robinson was born January 1st, 1922. Passed away December 7th, 2011. So he was 89 years old when he passed away. And I know Bob Kane was much older than he was at the creation of the Joker. So, you think back to when you were coming out of high school, or if you're in high school, then the one thing I can vividly remember is, as a high school student, it sounds weird, but I felt like I knew everything. And looking back, I had no clue. And I always talk and say this quite often, is, especially to my students, is life is a lesson, right? You often reflect on what you would learn from it. And I'm really curious to see what Jerry Robinson would say as to how he would have done things differently. I'm sure there's an interview out there, not one that I've come across. But, given what he knew at the age of, I think it was 17, when he started working with DC, Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and it was, and even as he was kind of growing up slowly, and just to get even that story straight, for me, one thing I always say is, especially in that type of business, I'd be journalizing things, writing things down as they happen. But you don't know until after the fact, right? It's like, oh, I wish I can go back in time and do this. You don't know. All you could do is take their word for it, right? And listen to the stories. How does it line up? In a lot of ways, Bob Kane is kind of like the Joker, right? You just don't know if what he's saying is true. It's multiple choice. That's not me saying that he created the Joker. That's far from it, actually. Honestly, the way it all lines up, I think, the way Jerry Robertson describes it, I honestly believe that he came forth with the Joker card, brought it to Bill Finger, which brought it to Bob Kane, right? And then these guys just went wild. And Jerry Robertson, as I said before, he doesn't shy away from giving credit where credit is due. He does give credit to Bob Kane, and you'll see that, right? Like that first comic that we will get into actually right now, Batman #1, where Bob Kane and Bill Finger and Jerry Robertson all worked on that, and it's the first introduction of the arch nemesis, the Joker. So Batman #1 was published in 1940. Okay. Jerry Robinson, Bob Kane, Bill Finger all helped create this comic and had a big part into actually especially the first 4 issues. I know Jerry Robinson was saying that Bill Finger's hands were a little full, and he was not one to juggle many tasks, and he primarily liked to focus on one task at a time. So Jerry Robinson was the one who kind of took over when helping to write for Batman #1. Now, getting back to Batman #1, where we see the first introduction of the Joker ever. Joker, his characteristics stay, like, to this day, kind of stay true to how he was introduced. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, like, there's a lot of characteristics, such as his theatricality, you'll see in this comic. His little sadistic sense of humor, where he's clearly enjoying inflicting pain in his own way. So, true to form, Joker and how he kills his victims is through a toxin. So right away, I immediately thought of Batman 89 and how the toxin, it immediately, where it kind of get like 89 at the end of the film, but it leaves its victims with a huge grin. Again, Batman 89 all over it. How does he announce the crimes is incredible as well, which had Dark Knight written all over it. Obviously, 89 and Dark Knight were able to borrow from the first Batman book ever written, and I thought it was cleverly done. So in the Dark Knight, Joker goes on TV and just announces how he's going to kill his next victim, and no different. In Batman #1, Joker goes on the radio and announces who his victim is and at what time they're going to die, which, again, very clever. I thoroughly enjoyed this comic, actually. I thought that Joker was definitely the highlight as to who this criminal was, and it made me want more. And I thought it was a perfect way to start off this Batman series and introduce a brand new villain that would obviously stay for us or with us for years to come. And it definitely set the tone. And, you think about who the Joker is, and I think that this comic, Batman #1, released in 1940, perfectly encapsulates as to who Joker is in a nutshell. He's got his laugh. He's got that sickening sense of humor where he loves inflicting pain and death, and he has a big grin because of it, and clearly enjoys it. And then obviously his obsession with creating chaos. So going on the radio and announcing who he's going to kill, and then the next panel shows like the person panicking, like, oh my God, my time has come. I'm going to die. And obviously Joker looks forward to it, and he's very, very clever. I thought that the drawings of the Joker, you can tell that it was derived from The Man Who Laughs. And I thought it was really well done. Was it to my liking? No, but for the first introduction of Joker, I mean, he's got the purple, he's got the hat. It's the Joker. It's the Joker. Highly recommend. So I found this comic on Hoopla. Fantastic app. I highly recommend that you download it. It's even, you can use it on your computer. And so yeah, and where did I find it? You think it was Joker 80 years. It was like the 80th anniversary. And I can get the name of it right now. Yeah, it's called The Joker 80 Years of the Clown Prince of Crime, the deluxe edition. Man, and next up, as to what I'm going to be reading for sure, as I think that this has to go down as one of Joker's top 5 stories, right? Batman number 1. I'd say the next one would be Five-Way Revenge. Joker's Five-Way Revenge. Instant classic. Best comic book cover of all time, arguably. I know it's my favorite comic book cover of all time, for sure. But yeah, and there you go. That's how Joker was introduced, thanks to Mr. Jerry Robinson. And, we have a lot to thank when it comes to his brain, his abilities, and the way he came up with it. Like, that Joker card was just brilliant. I did mention The Dark Knight earlier, and how The Dark Knight was able to kind of pick at specific panels from Batman number 1. Another one was, the scene where they're honoring Gordon, and Joker is there without his makeup, and he's dressed up as a cop. And sure enough, that is one of the one of the big panels I noticed right away, where Joker was dressed up as a cop to kill his next victim. So smart. Right? Anyway, that's the Joker. That's how he came to be, and that's his introduction. Man, do I love it. Best villain. He's so good. Curious as to what your favorite villain might be. Or maybe it is the Joker. Have we seen too much Joker? I mean, that's a whole other argument. But as to who's Batman's main enemy, Joker, hands down. And I think that there's a lot of layers to that character to understand. And I think with each depiction, I thought that a lot of directors have done an excellent job. You have Jack Nicholson, even the actors have done an excellent job. Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and can't forget Cesar Romero, the legendary Mark Hamill, and then you got Joaquin Phoenix. All have portrayed the Joker in their own way, and I thought nailed it on the head. The one where I'm like, I need to see more of is Jared Leto. He's polarizing. Currently, I'm not a fan. The little that we did see in Justice League, he was okay. But yeah, I think, we're even in for a treat when it comes to the Batman Part 2 and what to expect with the Joker and the portrayal by Barry Keoghan. So it'll be interesting because he seems like he's a pretty smart type of Joker. The look, although it's not pretty clear, but, it'll be interesting to see how they portray him. It kind of gives me vibes from Liber Mayo, but who knows, right? Anyway, with that said, that pretty much sums it up. So, if you'd like to shoot a comment, question, any concerns, feel free to email me at beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. And feel free to follow on Twitter/X at beyondthebatsignal. And subscribe if you got Spotify, wherever you're listening to podcasts. Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google, anywhere. And please rate and review the show as it helps spread the word. So, until next time, this is Beyond the Bat Signal, signing off.